Good evening. I'm Gina Roberts, Voter Education Director for the Citizens Clean Elections Commission. As the state's only nonpartisan voter education agency, Clean Elections is proud to sponsor these debates. Our mission is to ensure that you have the opportunity to hear directly from the candidates, ask questions about the issues that impact your life, and head to the polls with confidence. To make sure your voice is heard, please keep these upcoming deadlines in mind. June 22nd is the voter registration deadline, June 24th, early voting begins, and July 21st is primary election day. A quick reminder, all registered voters, including independents, are eligible to vote in the upcoming primary election. If you're watching this debate live, we want to hear from you. You can submit a question for the candidates at any time using one of the following methods. You can email debates@kc-a.com. You can text 480-769-9511 or phone 480-937-1253. Thank you for joining us and for staying engaged in our democracy. For more resources to help you prepare for the upcoming July 21st primary election, please visit our website at azcleanelections.gov. Enjoy the debate.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Clean Elections Debate for Legislative District 6, the Democratic primaries. I'm TJ LaRue, a porter with the Arizona Agenda, and I'm your moderator tonight. I've been writing about Arizona politics for 3 years with a focus on elections, the legislature, and municipal government. Tonight, you're going to hear from 3 candidates running in the Democratic primary for the State House of Representatives and the Senate to represent Legislative District 6 at the state capitol. 2 of the 5 candidates, Ian Teller, who's running for the House, and Myron Sosi, who's running in the Senate, chose not to be here tonight. Legislative District 6 encompasses almost all of northern Arizona and many of its tribal lands, from the Hualapai tribe in the west to the huge Navajo Nation in the east, then runs down the eastern border with New Mexico through Apache County, down to the entirety of the San Carlos and Fort Apache reservations. A strongly Democratic, mostly rural district, it covers much of Arizona's indigenous territories. Voters in LD6 will elect 1 state senator and 2 state representatives. And of tonight's candidates, 2 of them, May Peshlikai and Angela Maloney, are running for the House, and 1, Jamasita Peshlikai, is running for the Senate. This is an important primary because in the Democratic stronghold, the 2 victorious candidates in the House are highly likely to win in the general election. According to recent polling of voters in rural Arizona, the issues on their minds are government corruption, election security, and inflation. We'll cover a lot of those issues tonight. Here's how this debate will go. Each candidate will start with a 90-second opening statement to introduce themselves, and then we'll spend a few minutes getting to know who these candidates are as people. After that, we'll dig into the core issues facing this district and focus on policy questions. Then we'll ask each candidate to explain how they would have voted on a real bill from this session. Following that, we'll do a brief round of rapid fire questions and then finish off with a 90-second closing statement for each candidate. All right, let's get started. And I want to thank all 3 of you candidates for being with us tonight. We'll start with those opening statements, and this order was set by a random draw before the debate. The prompt is simple. Tell the voters who you are and why you're running. Angela, we'll start with you. Go ahead and take it away.
My name is Angela Maloney, and I'm from the Navajo Nation. And I'm from the Tangle clan, born for the Bitterwater clan, and the Salt clan are my maternal grandfathers, and paternal grandfathers are Rock Gap clan. I'm from Tuba City, and I want to say that I have a lot of experience in working with the Indian Health Services for over 40 years. Before that, I worked with the state and also the tribal government and the BIA, Bureau of Indian Affairs, on the Navajo Nation. Particularly, after I retired, I went and thought about running and helping my people with the education that I have and the experience that I have. And I've seen a lot at the grassroots level because I was a supervisor out in the field with environmental health, a lot of healthcare issues, and also
Looks like
and I would like to have my help my people with through my experience. And I have a master's of public health, and I'm going to put it to use and in helping my people.
excellent. Thank you, Angela. Next, May, over to you. Go ahead and introduce yourself to the voters.
Ja, May Pastor Kai in Shia, do the Sun in Shle, Hotness Sunny, in Shle, we between the Bashish chain, Ashi, dash cheats at this kidney, national, but ego ya sun in Shle, and I am the from the nation in northern Arizona, and I live and grew up in rural Arizona, as rural as you can get, and I've seen firsthand of the way I was raised, and I know what I have seen in this lifetime. I experienced it, and also after I got married, my husband was in the tribal politics, and I stood alongside him for 30 years, and I have seen and know how the Navajo Nation government runs, and so you never thought that I would be in this place, but it was a good thing I stood alongside him, never asking myself, where do we get the funding? How do we get all these infrastructures and things like that? But after he left, he passed on, I decided that I would help in a way that life has taught me at the state level. So incorporating that into the Navajo Nation government and the state government, it is really challenging at the state level. So this is what my lifetime experience has taught me, and I'm putting it to use for all of the indigenous tribal nations and people that live in the border towns that have known that we live in northern Arizona, and the biggest district in the country, the second largest one. So this is where my interest is for my LD6.
Thank you, May. We appreciate it. And as I forgot to mention earlier, parts of this debate will be in Dene as well as English. So if you want to take the opportunity to also kind of you repeat what you said, May and Angela, we'll go with May first. But if you want to repeat what you said, kind of sum it up in Dene as well, we can give you a minute and a half to do that as well.
Ja, Sheme Pesha Kaida Shijin, Adwadin Kilhahozo, Gihastranhahozo, LD6 Niki, Aid, Ajetra, Atra, Ninat Ani de Schliffen Sigo, ya, Ba, Shich Ananishne, Ado, Beninagi, ya, Kidadan. Niyata ho epil ahan jinnelo jinniha do nase na ash istoyat eko etzin zeno eya bin ye kot agot sa stikis do tam jilye kot ego ya atan sas case of benina shitene akot ego panash ado do shiga ton taha ado yan senko kot ego ya naha ado le naha bencht ego at sit di nache at ya na kinado akot ego shiga to don anil tsolabeni tlingo ndahwit ado go ya nsede case naha archenpa atit idole akot ego be nil isjan islado ado ye.
Thank you so much. And Angela, I also wanted to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself, since I forgot to mention that after you did that in English, in Dene, if you'd like.
Yat Esha Angela Maloney and Shia. Aya one besh for horse dodger. Ado Nahatagi aje nahata winit ado les adet ant en hil nda ado les hajoye kodo nasnane kato les had ishi ben da has taken hil da hino ado beniye ado she master's degree will yeki as in Jaba iltra. Ado environmental science do allied health service do ba iltra kin lanje akoko shanan nish ajish onzel inje destino ba ashanache lago aleben shishnish lago it's clearly the Bureau of Indian Affairs, though Indian Health Service, as a agent that in these doors law, but not in this door, ado na a con, which in the Iliage state welfare, Ninigi aid, but in the Iliagi agito Ayosh Nanish Shla, a co, lago the Nebitin, das Dego or Shespels and out egon he Kaddish Watson Corte. Out ego beniet, akunt ego beniet yishwal isja ado ade anot ni kan not john hiln da ado lel nsin do. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And finally, Jamisita, go ahead and please introduce yourself in English and Dene, if you'd like.
Thank you, TJ. Thank you to everybody that is working on this with the Clean Elections Office and all the folks that are watching this debate online. My name is Jamesita Peshalkai. I was born and raised in northern Arizona, and I still live in the district in the small, tiny community of Cameron on the Navajo Nation. My clans are Tangle People Clan, born for the Red House Clan. Maternal grandfathers are Bitterwater Clan, and paternal grandfathers are Cliff Dweller Clan. Ado she ya Jamesita me beshagay dashajine. Tratne satni and schlick hin cheat ni bashachin. Twitch eat ni dashache tenjakine dashanella. Ako kut ya asanin shle. Ado nana ahasanado ado shagan. Ado sha'alchinanake hello. And I'll continue in English. Like I said, I was born and raised in northern Arizona. I'm also a U.S. Army veteran, combat war veteran of the Persian Gulf War, Desert Storm. I have 2 grown children that reside in the district and live and work in Flagstaff. And I did get my bachelor's and master's degree from NAU, and currently I am a student at the Sandra Day O'Connor Law School at ASU. And I'm a former state representative and state senator. I was, in fact, the first Native Indigenous woman senator in the state of Arizona. And during that time, I served as caucus, minority caucus whip, and then also in leadership. And I have a decade of experience in the legislature here in Arizona. I also have worked for the federal government and state and tribal government as well. So I show up I have 100% attendance rate in the House of Representatives and in the Senate. I have 100% attendance rate on the floor, in committees, and in caucus. And So I have 2 children, and I understand the struggle and the lives of the people in rural Arizona and District 6. Thank you, TJ.
Thank you very much, Chibisita. And thank you all for introducing yourselves. We'll move on to our first round of questions, but first, a quick reminder, you can submit a question for the candidates at any time if you're viewing. You can email debates@kc-a.com. You can text 480-769-9511, or you can call 480-937-1253. Next, this segment is about who you are, not your policy positions, but what shaped you, how you think, and who you'd be once in office. Each candidate has between 60 and 90 seconds to answer. And in this round, there are no rebuttals, though there will be an opportunity to deliver a rebuttal in other rounds. And as mentioned, all candidates will have the opportunity to speak in both English and Dene. So first question, when's the last time members of your own party were angry with you? Tell us what you did or said and what happened. So on this one, we'll start with Jimisita, particularly given your experience in the Arizona legislature.
Thank you, TJ. Well, first of all, when you are a leader, you have to lead with your conscience and what you think is the right foot to step out in, and the stance that you take. People often ask about platforms, and I was raised in such a way that the idea of a political platform is slightly foreign to me. And but what I work with as a person and a human being for the greater good of the people and the citizens of Northern Arizona is my commitments and my personal commitments to compassion, kindness, and the success of everybody, my neighbor. And that is what I work with. And I don't know if people get upset with me or not, but when you work in such a way that you're working with representing over 250,000 people in a state with millions of people and having impacts that go national, you have to be strong as a leader and not look around to see who is criticizing you. You just have to stand strong with the commitments that you have as a compassionate Indigenous woman and mother and grandmother. And that's what I work with. Thank you, Kyle. I mean, TJ.
Yeah, thank you. And would you like to also deliver your answer in Dene as well?
Sure. The shit don't need to get a hit none nisho benins do yat eho and hit the nepa nan shit no a ko she ya kut sanin slingo she ya ho shit the nepa gado but halit nasto kato sa rebek eho jongo nas yat eho jongo nas na ne kato lesen seno a ko kut yan sanin shle a kut ya she ya ho a kut ya shalchina Bacha siado bag itin siado shitsudo shanella a dat eheki ba estido leila kut eya nashit the nes tra shamado shaja shanella do aunt at belheje ge kut hit that nashit the nes tra yeah.
Thank you so much. Next, let's go over to Angela. Go ahead and answer, and I'll repeat the question. When's the last time members of your own party were angry with you? Tell us what you did or said and what happened. And Angela, you're on mute. Go ahead and unmute yourself so we can hear you.
Yate Angela Maloney, the Schnekut Egon, Shade Kitty, a Bashnet or Letsa. Hatala Anne Coche, Niliniki, Zanezje, Zanezje, Kahaki, Hadetan, Sahash, Slindo Yego, Sadin, Yisnil, Nigo, Kodosh, Nashide Kid. Nash Nishije, Nishnije, ya do a charge on Neltante. Hajo kishdi tiko hajo biki yajil tiko jo kohot ego kyohoton. Akho do akho tsachin jiyeda akho ahote hajo biki yatio hajo dene bilinjilnishiki do bilindahoja agi hajo ale biki yajil tiko yate ahot ego eke hoton do nas beta hon tishit no nashit nes tranche hono nas tranche mato ado koto bilhaije do hotano hotan tashnes tra hajo ale bikiyat hugo be nas da hon ti ado ashish yaho agi do hot ani amanschle masanen na kide masanen do ego hajo nantin bezego yahot ego be nasta huntin so denen das nes tra hot began bansas case adot ananisten de hot hajo alle bikiyatio ake hoton hajo alle banat ego alle la anil ahot ego ba honsen. I'm Angie Maloney, and during my work experience, I've never really thought, different groups of political parties. I work with different political parties, but never really disagreed about what my work thing, my work was. They helped me, and I helped them with finding solutions, and that's the only way we can move ahead and solve problems with the issues that we have at the community level, at the state level, and hopefully go up to the national level. So that's the way my thinking is about disagreements. What we bring to the table, our experiences and our work experience, personal experience, and upbringing experience. Those are the things that I rely on with to solve problems and move forward. Thank you, TJ.
Thank you, Angela. Next and finally, May, go ahead and answer the question, which I'll repeat here. When was the last time members of your own party were angry with you? Tell us what you did and what happened.
Hello again, this is May Peshlakai, and I will start by saying that I agree with Jamesita, and I do agree with Angie Maloney on their answers. And from my experience as being a leader with my husband in the tribal politics and at the state level, I know that you cannot please everybody. There's no way to do that, but there are solutions that they can juggle around to find. At the state level, I do work with a lot of representatives and senators, and they will. I know that funding is the most important thing that people ask for. funding for this and that, whether it's a school, healthcare, infrastructures, and you try to work with them and then and find where the biggest issues are. You know, so this is what I have come to learn. And so this is what I use, and we do work together with our caucus to help fund these things. And I don't know who has upset who in this in our party, but I did work with a lot of people, and I do try to help everybody any way I can at the state level. So this is my answer to that. Thank you.
Thank you, May. And would you like to answer in Dene as well?
Di me na de me peshlakai. Halet egot an he da onelche di zanes be da onelche hat egola de ne biche nich do okotat egon chen hata hatsi jon jeno in a shistel kid ni nan o ha you the nebel dajil nisho do de ne tro helt egon tsekesta llahod ego cwestiwn nilne kwt ego na hosru adwan jodan akondi di beso liegi ndante de agisi boholni wokedo de koje yego anahod eje chon indole di ol khato da ti na gaj ti ta ntinta tsudet tro bahuint do alla bahuint ida beso jokedo so the nan bit benina nan agi di kojila jati yeta dan yeta haikagi hacha le atayini lo kwat ego ba beneath has kwat ego ni hilbehozen do jas huisuzani sitsat can't
Thank you so much, May. So on to our next question. Tell us about the hardest period of your life. How did you get through it, and what did it teach you about yourself? This time we'll reverse and start with May.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, certainly. Tell us about the hardest period of your life. How did you get through it, and what did it teach you about yourself?
You know, that is a lot of the things that has happened in my lifetime. First of all, it's going through the BIA, Bureau of Indian Affairs schools, back when I was 11 years old. And we were trying to be cleansed of everything that we were taught in our traditional way. And that is, that really changed. And we were told not to speak our languages. We were put in, different religious order every year. And so that might have been a real disappointment to me. But in the long run, it has taught me many things and I chose to stay with my own belief because it was really down to earth, kindness, humanity that was embedded in me when I was being taught this thing. So, and then as for religion, let people be, let them be who they are. We cannot change all the people and just go one way. This is what it has taught me. So I stay with my beliefs. I stay with my fluent in Navajo, and so this is what my biggest disappointment has taught me when I was 11 years old.
Thank you. And if you'd like, you can repeat it in your name.
Arodina shite kidigi hat ila ayisi nistil height ego ebe chini yashtoni ya pa has zigi ya tlazata shnache go ultraje inchibelti aten atenek achit eshiyaho ado ajit eyashtio ado ajit ninhite ne chiteje belnen hite nel ado ya nasnez tra yego dite nihizeto hatolige nenikin sekes so te dipel gana ta hikagi ajit en seta kesto ado di otlanitan liniki eto aje otlaniti tatollitan hite nigo beninan tan hite nilskiso todo nitrat ise nitrata aldralo kot ego eya bidoj enikhay akot ente na ntinet ela di eya ashe nasetet nestra ede hasen to dod alsko be na ntinet ela akoko denen nini ado kot ego tahino natato nene penti atat kot ego eya nihilpeo zindo do epesaz ado hea.
Next, we'll go on to Jamesita, please. And repeat the question too. Tell us about the hardest time of your life. How did you get through it, and what did it teach you about yourself?
Thank you, TJ. I think instantly when you ask that question, I think of the Persian Gulf War. I was in the Army, and I had just gotten out of boot camp, and and next thing you know, we have a war breakout in the Middle East, which is we're currently back in that same situation. But I went from the Navajo Nation, from the reservation, the desert where I was raised herding sheep, riding horses, and out to the desert of northern Saudi Arabia, Kuwait. And I remember being a young lady and wondering if my life had come to that point where that was going to be the end, and it was very uncertain. But I found the strength to get through that, and I was a reliable soldier. I did the hard work that I had to do with a combat support hospital. We had a POW camp in our perimeter. We're the only combat support hospital that brought in casualties. And we did see soldiers from the Republican Guard and all of that. And then I returned home, and I realized that it is harder to be a Native American person living in the United States than to be a soldier at war on the other side of the world. Because when you are in the U.S. military and you're in the middle of a war, you have the might of the United States behind you. You have support, you have tanks, you have M16 in your hand. When you're an indigenous person living on a reservation in Arizona, you have to figure out how you're going to haul water. You're going to be the one that has to figure out how you're going to feed your sheep and your horses, how you're going to feed your children. And that's where I find that although I can look back and point to many times that I was challenged in my life, I would say today is very challenging as a mother, and where we are in the world with climate change. I want my children to have a teaching of living strong spiritual lives. And right now, as a country and as a human being, as a race, species, I find that really difficult to give hope and inspire our young people. So I think every day that is a new challenge, TJ. Ado de kwa na shite kitiki ya halet hadala kut na hois na shite no ako ya twitset na den sepa da asala so an shlingo the Saudi Arabia ya do Kuwait ya but aden set a trahan sepa ako the aya should na whis na and the quit the hawa the non style aya at the hitch na hui na belash la ita need lenigi halet ang kaachinala that do yil ta need zen halet nas na ne kato le the to do khayuda do hadala in heli do ang kaachina and yat eho banda huit yat eho nas nanay katole jinseno kut ya hotil le do I see ating hitch it na huit na nte not anijileho kut ya kaachina do and denne kut nas nane katole hojongo hojana hasli jinzont na hoja ya at ako kut ya hasi dole ha. Thank you, TJ.
Thank you so much. And Angela, if you'll round us out on this question, tell us about the hardest period of your life. How did you get through it? And what did it teach you about yourself? And Angela, make sure to unmute yourself as well. Thank you.
As a child growing up, my grandmother had a big hand in raising me and my sister, and she would get us up really, really early. There's a time to go to sleep, and there's a time to get up, and you come up and work and do your part to move forward with the family, help each other. That was her teaching. And you don't watch people suffer. So when the going from there into the schools, I graduated from NAU, and then I went on to Loma Linda University. And that was the hardest time of my life because my mind didn't work that way. I had to go through the science courses. I didn't really understand it, but I worked from sun up. Sometimes I did pull all-nighters, and I really had to understand the subjects I was studying. So that has taught me to be resilient, make myself useful, and be accountable and reliable. So that has been my foundation in a long civil servant employment and working with people. So those are some of the things that I had to go through. And my sister and I did go through were survivors of the boarding schools, and I had the same experiences like her. And even that, you can glean a lot of the things I said. You're resilient. You're going to make your choices on what you want to be and how you want to help humanity. Be compassionate when you see other people struggling, when you see that your people need help, the people in your district. It doesn't matter if it's, if it's indigenous people, any nationality, you want to help where the help is needed. Angela Maloney, Nadishna, Akoko, Alkita, Nihinala, Nihinesa, Shadidoshe, Ako Bin, Gwanan Hidin, Nashnish, la the not card, la the twa set choose the the bit the ye tat or leaf according jet of a tat or lane that no ado the better part the wheelia see the part the wheelia out on hit it nessa ado kujut ado nastes to le inil do what answers cases I see yego alle a bajol tao I yego nanishla so that I will be in stra ohosh bohosh the had issue that at ado that ini bijit holongo put our knowledge that nigo the bajol tao anan tao dojo ego do ego pistil no akot ego go best be should never can dish what do hat out an chin be sits other ohitos al shish al chin da a queta shon ini Judy sani ni tli akot ego hoa ba huiliado a kwe huini ho allige in hasalto hoa ke kusalage ahot ego shia ho a kot de yego nanish bit sitske a shila alle de schließen ahot ego shidet nesado ado bin nache dit ego na hanash nish ozel age this din don't know what nache so that nan nishi sat maje ko ahot ego shnan snanat iton sentite a ko he
Thank you, everybody, for the chance to get to know you. Let's turn to the issues that voters care most about. This is the core of tonight's debate, the issues that voters told us matter most in the area. And here's the format. I'll ask a question. Each of you gets 90 seconds to respond. And please remind everybody to try to keep your answers to the length of time we've specified. After all of you have answered, I'll open a 60-second rebuttal window. During that time, you can respond to something another candidate said, or you can add your own answer if you wanted to touch on something previously said or add something that you didn't mention. In this round, I'll ask follow-ups when I deem appropriate. So we'll start with our first question. Inflation is hitting Arizona families hard. It's at the top of voters' mind in this election, particularly in rural territories, and it's become central to the Democrats' agenda. So here's our question. What would your approach be to help families in your district and across the state weather these difficult economic times? Please be specific. What would your first acts in the legislature be when it comes to inflation and affordability? This time, we'll start with Jamasita. Go ahead, Jamasita, and tell the voters what your answer is.
Thank you, TJ. I think one of the things that folks are struggling with right now is the economic situation that we all find ourselves in. There is a lot of uncertainty in the world with the rising inflation and also the impacts of the immigration policy. And we are a border state to Mexico. And a lot of the produce comes out of southern Arizona, Yuma area. And those folks rely heavily on the water from the Colorado River. And so all of these things all impact each other to and impact our wallets. And so there you have to be thinking across the issues, not just food and affordability, but also, let's say, for example, the price of fuel, and where right now nationally the Trump administration is looking back at coal. So these are things that all kind of roll together and impact each and every single one of us. Right now in rural Arizona, a lot of people rely on federal grants and monies, and even say in healthcare. And we find healthcare being impacted. If folks don't have health insurance, then it rolls on down the line to access. And that is Arizona Healthcare Cost Containment. And access impacts each and every person in Arizona, whether they use it or not. So we need to make sure that access is secure and is accessible to everybody that needs it, and making sure that the healthcare centers and hospitals are able to keep costs down with providing healthcare, because there's a lot of folks that if they don't have health insurance, then they will walk into an emergency room, and that is an emergency room is required to see each and every person that comes in, and yet it comes out of somebody's pocket. It's not free. So we have to be very diligent in making sure that that we are acting as a safety net to make sure that that the federal government is doing as much as they can to take care of these costs, so it doesn't roll down to the state level and to the individual person, where it can bankrupt folks. And we don't want people having to become homeless if they have to decide whether they're going to pay their rent, their mortgage, or put food on the table, or take care of prescription costs. And these can all be life-changing and detrimental and devastating. And there's probably a rising number of suicide and that type of thing. So that's my answer. Thank you, TJ.
Thank you. And if you'd like to answer in Janae as well, you can. Just remember, please try to keep your answer to about 90 seconds.
I will not answer that in Navajo. It's really complex, and I know I did take over my 90 seconds. Thank you.
Yeah, that's all right. By all means, you're not required to. So it sounds good. Next, same question, and I'll repeat it in just a moment. Goes this time to Angela. So what would your approach be to help families in your district and across the state weather these difficult economic times and inflation? Please be specific as well. What would your first acts in the legislature be when it comes to inflation and affordability? And could you unmute yourself, Angela?
This is Angela Maloney. Yeah, I agree with a lot of the things that Jamie Sita said. And we see it every day in our district. I think for me, the most important thing is access to healthcare, quality healthcare. We don't have any type of specialty hospitals on the Navajo just because we're not a metropolitan area. And every specialty that is needed within our hospitals are shipped out or flown out to Flagstaff to get more advanced medical care. And another thing that I would work on is also Medicaid, Medicare, and SNAP benefits. We need to fight for those benefits so that our citizens can get the benefits that they deserve and that it's needed by them. So those are the things that I would work on and really focus my attention on. It all depends on the people here, and I hear them talk. We've been to so many communities, and people did talk to us about some of those things. So, and the thing that's most on top of their list is SNAP and Medicaid and Medicare also. So those are the things that I'm going to work on with my constituents and the communities that we serve.
Thank you so much. Would you like to answer in Dene as well?
Angela Maloney, out ego. Halet ego the Nabayan Tito let Halet ego hat ila yego in betatil ashi ede Naspahati chit no shite kidako. Di kojet azel age at sipa hayaj so that lipe the nahalo nahan ke so beso ni che akoko di kwa enhil khaz anigi the rural areas that ninigi dojo the net la that ako to azel in yego the nepen the ansto yego the net ze pahatal ni atten age yego lada nsoho teslo le Phoenix goton le Albuquerque goton le New Mexico that accomplish a diet ba da haya jo edin he den akonde kote ya ayet go azel de ben haya do le beso shin hate needs and do le hot ego tati not ado ko en dachil nishi yego eta hotsinido yego dene hat halet abchen da hast equal beta hosen do le echo hot ego pansas kesel ado the net a rat o yelbchen da hast da huat nas dato huat ya da haliante the chin ye need de jodi laho yego alle da elle das lin a coach yanen de do chon da elle atse ado nadia ba wante the way de the do chon da elle das lin ko ashi po na halo de neta aya a ja a coach yan beche hotal inte enle na jahata doshi ate yan te to ya a tsin jno ya khalian ki shi to ye hinato le to ye nasnato ta li shi to hada betrata ko di kojet Jiyan akana alo just snap niniki food stamps niniki to ado Medicare Medicaid da niniki sani nastas li edo da viego bechen da hastigi ede chayol ido le liki bechen peso honda stotli eden hade needs and do le di azel Egypt nast jetzt ba ja nast igi hot on ha na haban de edo na haben stido le hot ego a here
Akira. May, you will be the final candidate to answer this question. So again, what would your approach be to help families in your district and across the state weather these difficult economic times? And please be specific about what your first act in the legislature would be when it comes to inflation and the affordability crisis.
My answer would be that, we as Indigenous people, we have lived through the Great Depressions in our time, some of us. And back in the day, people had access to their land to cultivate, and then their own livestock to depend on for food and everything that comes with, even blankets and stuff like that. But today, with the inflation and everything, and with our own government on these tribal nations, have put prices on or permits and fees on these permits on every piece of land and people that grow their own livestock, people that grew their own food, those were the sources back then. But today, everything has a price on it. So that is we need to work with the state where they can ease up on these fees for permits. It's so much red tape, especially on indigenous nations. You know, we as Navajos, people think that we don't pay taxes, but we do. The Navajos and other tribal nations, they have dual taxation. They pay their own government, the state government, and the federal government. These are the ones that are putting us into resources that should have been, like the inflation, the rise of inflations on food, gas, insurance, and everything. So this is what I would work on to see if the state or the federal government can ease up on these fees. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Would you like the opportunity to answer in Dene as well?
Adonan hidekit hat egolati ledo chung ego da ilon adalia di jid di de chitebetro o chung il ado chiyand kot ba kotano sinchi chiyando chung il ado altschot wolbet ni that this kid a kontenek in that the kaya altsko basically that awliye dot is the hat ishi big in that the kaya got the do betahone ada an hitel in bo osle hade shi adol an hiya ta hakeko e nata hilni kon khan nata hanni akot end di ya alkita ado la epilagana but what is not Great Depression de Nigo de na ni tlini bi that chini kai benina chini kagi ya the an hi ni the bedo ni li be the ni chi yan li do be in that di kai ado ya an hi in that di kai ko kat ego ya di ji de it's the na han that di ni not ani that jeleni de ben that di nish ber sa no so ade shitena ta no leniki no so pa sa no so sa beni lingo shbeta di ki ado konela peso bol tra di ko nchepetol nche da adole adotan kitchen dole kot ego shin han saskes ado yeah.
Okay, that rounds up this question. Does anybody want to take the opportunity to respond to anything their opponent said or add something briefly that was not said?
No.
No. Okay, great. We'll move on then to our second question. So Arizona has a housing crisis, and Democrats don't all agree on what's driving it. What's your diagnosis for who and what is primarily to blame? And what's the first bill that you would push to address it? We'll start in reverse order, this time with May. Go ahead, May, and give a response.
Thank you. Yeah. You know, housing is affordability on homes and rentals, anything that would lower the cost of these affordable housing. We need it. We need affordable housing, and that's what I would, work on: affordability on homes and rentals. Today, it's really outrageous. we have young people that are struggling to make ends meet, and they have little families who they support. And a lot of our people, indigenous people, come from the reservation to these border towns to work, and they can't afford homes, and they have to drive back and forth and to go to work either in Winslow, Flagstaff, Page, Holbrook, anytime, any place, even Phoenix, and they have to be. They even live in their trucks, in their cars, to 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 make ends meet. And housing is an issue across this state. So this is what I work on to make it affordable. Work with people that have their constituents facing the same thing. I think throughout Arizona, it might be everywhere. So this is what we would work together with. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. And if you'd like, you can just repeat your answer in Dene.
Ado hen get the schneedo. Die ja die kwa na shide kid. Die ho one. So the door chung da ille. Benina Nachin dan lini konde hade shin dalnish. Ho one ende chehatajin tra. Do bone ado laho ekin da yilni. Aquatida affordable housing chon ille dole liki eden haban date idole en gilbeta hosen benina naha alchinaha goshina nishikenda kaya den nahaka akoko akode adola atusha dan lini nda yilni huyi tapagan kot ego eya nikilbeta hosen don de Danil Akokotite Kinolie Chekota illegal the ne but Bichekota just idole Nahapan Dajit Ido at Aragonat Ani Dajeleniki Din Ye Kodo de Nikedo Eya Latato do dan his deeds at the Lacheta on Nefiki Kot Ego Eya Jo Ajishi Bezo Ye en hilpeahosen dole ado ahehe nana.
Okay. And then next, we'll go to Jamasita. Democrats don't all agree on what's driving Arizona's housing crisis. So what's your diagnosis for who and what is to blame primarily, and what's the first bill you would push to address it?
Thank you, TJ. I think it's a really sad place that we find ourselves in, not only as a state and a district, but as a nation. And I don't know, I've watching the news, this is something that is happening globally. And here we find that our children, my children, don't know, will never realize what the American dream is that the baby boomers lived, where you could have any full-time job and be able to afford a home. And now people are working with 2, 3, or 4 jobs and still can't afford a home. And rental prices are just out of their reach. There's a lot of people in District 6 that do live in public areas, in parking lots, and they have jobs, and they have they just can't afford and to live in an apartment or a home. And I think being a representative, being a legislature, you have to listen to the leaders at the local level, city and county, and work with those that are experts in the areas. But you hear and you read the news that corporations are building up, buying up land. They're buying up the manufactured home lots and putting in apartments that are that they want to stack as many human beings in there like sardines as they can, and say that they're luxury apartments. And so these are things that we're all looking at. Airbnb is impacting local small communities and even large communities. And so those are things that I would look at and work with everybody, because I don't think there is going to be one overall solution. Arizona and District 6 is huge, and it's very, very diverse, and each community is different. Some are almost like company towns, and then others are tribal communities. So you have to work across the board with everybody and try to work with the experts on the ground that can help solve problems. And like right now, we have a housing crisis on most of the tribal nations, and my tribe included. And we just got defrauded with paying a company out of Flagstaff that took $24 million to build manufactured homes on tribal lands, and they only produce 18. And the CEO of that company is a former senator. So we have to be, us legislators have to be the caretakers and the watchdog for our communities, and not allow this kind of thing to happen. And so it's pretty complex. Thank you, TJ.
Thank you, Jimisita. And finally, last we'll go to Angela. So Angela, go ahead and unmute yourself. And the question, I'll repeat it, is Arizona has a housing crisis and Democrats don't all agree on what's driving it. What's your diagnosis for who and what is primarily to blame, and what would be the first bill you push to address it?
I think the housing crisis is it has a lot of strings attached to it, even from the ground up. The manufacturers of all the building materials, the machinery, all the tools that's needed, and those things need to be. That this has an affordability issue of all of those things all the tools that you need to build a home, and to make sure that they're built sturdy, that will last a long time. The price should not reflect what kind of materials that they use. Even though we have building codes, they can make it to meet certain weather zones, certain seismic zones, and stuff like that. And they need to really be watchful in those areas where laws are concerned. And the housing crisis, I agree with a lot of the things that May and Jamesita said. But what most of the problems that I see is mothers and grandparents helping out their kids or their grandkids that are in border towns where they cannot afford to house themselves, and they end up on the streets. So there's a really big problem that comes leading up to owning a home or living in an apartment where your family can be safe. So those are some of the problems that we face. And right now, I have talked to a lot of families where they're saying, "I'm paying for my kids' rent. I have to help out," and the elders and the parents are doing without some of the basic necessities. it ties into healthcare, the food that they eat, the healthcare that they can afford. So, it's a really big problem that we have when we either ignore something or improve something. Something has to shift. So we need to be, as Tina said, be watchdogs for our communities, for our district, for Arizona's to enjoy the life to the fullest. Thank you, DJ.
Thank you, Angela. Next, we'll go on to our third question. This one's a pretty straightforward one. On your first day in office, what would be your top legislative priority for your district and Arizona's tribal nations, specifically if you're elected? We'll start with Angela this time. So go ahead and take it away, Angela.
In visiting the communities and throughout the Navajo Nation and some other indigenous communities, it's really an affordability issue. And some of it is beyond our control, but we can help out in any way that we can to have people afford food, afford to get from their home to the healthcare centers through affording gasoline, affording food, because if you don't have the food, it affects your health. It affects everything that your children, your grandchildren, and that's the most complaint that I hear about is the affordability, because there's some remote areas. A can of Spam is $8, $10, and meat is like $10, $12 a pound. Where when you go into Phoenix, you can get it for $6 a pound. So these are some of the things that a lot of people are concerned about in the indigenous countries, in the remote areas. That would be my priority next to healthcare. Thank you.
Thank you. And if you'd like to, you can also respond about your legislative priority in Dene.
Nana koto Angela Maloney dishne di koje halet ego nan hite nashite hat ila tsepa ba nidne ba bandit ila hat ila yego beta hotil tela akut ego hat ila tsepa bandit ila shito ni ko khashine la de nebetrasaya ado tappe bagaki elto Bania out abeln dashna dit abesh wol de snigo ko ako khasit dona itishkit hat ila yeon hitadil at snigo dit dat alle dort kohoni hich ille achite betho naliaba wano to tahle tapo o azel ego to tahle apo o hat ishe ben hitchen da hast ben ye to talet apo o jo de o ta no kon hiltan a konte a huichi ita de ye go petatil a to chon chian hitche ille alla na dia ba wan di kaya pa ni kaya pa kha git azat alla to nana ta akho I chen ito lili di to tan da tita akoko hadet an hapan da to nish hadet ada al to illigon khan da to nil an khan da to nil khashit an nasna ti khata nigo akho san len zat athi don zat da paganiki khotane an let pagante ya ta halianiki out eko koche ye ko alle ni cheta ille Das legi nakabenst idole. Ashin kot ego. Ade tato ninigi be ntan hollo. De be the neta ninigi lao ata nigo. De be bikahon jitnishia at hot dole. Yeah.
Ahiehe. And the next, May, same question for you. On your first day in office, what would your top legislative priority for Arizona's tribal nations be if you're elected?
Hello. My first one would be infrastructures. I go across the Navajo Nation, and our roads are just, it's not even safe places. We have a lot of people that tour across these indigenous tribal nations, and especially on the Navajo, because we have long stretches of roads, and where I was, let me just kind of talk about North Highway 89. It crosses from Flagstaff onto the Utah, into Utah. And this is the only road that connects from Flagstaff across from Tucson all the way across the state into Utah. And if you travel that road, it is just the bumpiest ride that you will. It's like a roller coaster. So, and then that would be one of my top priorities, because I travel the road quite a bit because I live in Cameron. And so, and another thing is we have the safety of our children that travel these roads every single school year. And my son is works for the Tuba City School District, and he's a bus driver and a mechanic. So he complains about it. So this would be one of the top things that I would work on.
Thank you very much. And if you'd like the opportunity, you can also answer in Janae.
Adodik adnashitek nagay yelwatligin nahonan snago khaatila at sa pandit inchdo ni jo ya atin ko at on dite North Highway 89 or yagi pe hashnet or le 18 le Tucson don le Utah ade kojet ade 18 ako tinigit isit opa bakaj the gao o you got to the what the nan get or what the joti ya you see sapita aro shi yaj ya sa ultra yanalnish alchin bena gagi ede ye chin trade ye isi tin obata islahonenko what ego ishin habinch ido ado the nebetrandista ani nugay Central Navajo in Nina Shand and ad what ego yatite a timbagatas ahit isit obata biltahoneya beyond hata o hayu what adola bigi helta zago nata tigo tronhilia and dan hitnigo eya danigo it nebeta this aquatishin eya and alsan habencht idole na nasnago ado hihan hitini dole. Thank you.
Next, to finish off this question and the round, Jamasita, we'll give you the opportunity to answer.
Thank you, TJ. I can't specifically pinpoint one thing, but there's 4 top issues that that spring to mind. One is making sure that we have access and equity in elections, and making sure that each vote is counted, not depending on whether you are in rural or in the urban area, that there are no challenges or obstacles that are put in your way by the government and the system, that that all votes are counted. And then also the great equalizer of public education, making sure our public schools are funded and supported, and that our teachers and administrators and staff are compensated for the work that they put in to educating our young people. And then also making sure we end the universal voucher system, because it is basically forcing our public schools, especially rural Arizona, to close in the name of freedom of education, when universal vouchers go to private schools that have no oversight and there's no accountability. And just like the rehabilitation behavioral health homes that turned into a massive fraud, and now that is being investigated, that needs to happen in education in Arizona too as well. And because we have seen a lot of money just being funneled out of our state, and our children and the future of Arizona is at stake. Next is the missing, murdered Indigenous women, girls, and people. We need to take that seriously. Life is, people's lives are in our hands, and it doesn't take, it shouldn't be this hard to find solutions and collaborations among jurisdictions with the federal, state, and tribal public safety to create a safer Arizona. And then also, as a veteran of the Persian Gulf War, I know, being a veteran myself here, that there is great inequity in getting benefits and services to rural and Indigenous veterans. And you see a lot of TV commercials of veterans being helped, but I myself never see an actual veteran that has been benefited in any way. And no veteran should be homeless or absolutely destitute and suffering if they have an honorable discharge and they serve in the U.S. military. So those are things that spring to mind, and there's a lot of issues in Arizona. Legislative District 6 is, like I said, vast, it's diverse, and it's just really being able to meet with local leaders and have them represent their constituents and work with municipalities and governments and different jurisdictions, and bringing and people together, collaborating, and not feeling like we have to reinvent the wheel every session. We need folks that have life experience, are diplomatic, are willing to work in the legislature to educate those in Arizona that are state representatives that have not lived in Arizona very long. Right now, in the state legislature, we have 90 representatives, 60 in the House, 30 in the Senate, and not all of them know all of Arizona. But I, as an Indigenous person born and raised in Arizona, I am of this land, and I plan to stay exactly where I'm at. As an Indigenous woman, I don't have the benefit of ruining a state and then moving elsewhere. I'm here for the long haul, and so are my descendants, and that's what I'm committed to. Thank you, TJ.
Thank you, Jamasita. We'll give a brief time if anybody would like to use the rebuttal portion of the round. Does anybody want to respond to something somebody else said or add something? No. All right.
No.
Then in that case, thank you all, and let's change gears to our next round. This one is called Explain Your Vote. As we mentioned earlier, before tonight's debate, each candidate received 3 actual bills from this legislative session, which ended last week. I picked one of them to ask you about tonight. So here's how this works. I'll read a short summary of the bill, and each of you will have 1 minute to tell voters 2 things: how you would have voted and why. There are not any rebuttals in this round. So without further ado, the bill is SCR 1020. It's about pay raises for state legislators. Hopefully you've all read the bill, but this is a quick summary and layman's version. For years, state lawmakers have earned $24,000 for every session they serve in, and some have criticized the pay as too low for an important public job, while others have said the salary is appropriate, especially since the legislature is only in session for about half the year. An SCR is a Senate concurrent resolution, which is, of course, different from a regular bill because if passed, it would go to voters' ballots so they can decide on the question in the next November general election. Specifically, SCR 1020 would require the state government to adjust salaries for lawmakers every year according to inflation or deflation as named by the Consumer Price Index. So how would you vote on SCR 1020? So we'll start with you, Jamasita. And remember, try to keep your response to 1 minute.
Thank you, TJ. Having served in the legislature previously, I had at one point voted to that I thought it was a good idea to raise the salaries of the state legislators. And I had said that because 24,000 coming from the furthest area from in Arizona to Phoenix to serve, it's a lot of money. And if you have that salary of $24,000, thank goodness I had relatives, my sisters, and I could stay with them in Phoenix, and you get by. But when you have young people or people that are not independently wealthy, it's a barrier to them. And then so what I found having served in the legislature was people that were independently wealthy that actually didn't have to work could serve very comfortably in the legislature, but the average everyday person that is not independently wealthy, they just couldn't do it. And so you see a lot of turnover from areas of Arizona. And so that was something that I encountered. But on this bill, I would say no. I would not vote for this bill. And I think it would need to be rewritten. And I didn't get totally into the bill. I have it here on my phone. But in this case, I would not vote for this bill, but previously I had. So that's my answer. Thank you.
And just as a follow-up, what would you think would need to be rewritten with the bill?
I'm looking for that part in the bill where
All right, it's all right. I just wanted to give
yeah.
I just wanted to give you the opportunity if you had ideas about what you would want rewritten. But thank you. And next we'll go on to Angela. So Angela, how would you vote on SCR 1020?
TJ, I have to agree with what Tina said. it really, it's not that the legislators are in session less than half a year or only up to half a year. And a lot of people talk, they say they think that it's only maybe a 8 to 5 job. But I see these two, Jamesita and May, their minds are working almost around the clock, sometimes sleepless nights, reading up about things and asking questions their constituents about a lot of things, and a lot of the legislatures like District 6, it's a huge area, and you have to go and visit these areas upon request. And I've seen these ladies wear out 2 to 3 vehicles. And I think that it's worth considering that the legislators' pay go up. I really think that it's not an 8 to 5 job. It's almost around the clock. Even when you're not in the office, even when you're in recess, they get called back. They have to still do the work and then they get called back into the office, and they really do work. And a lot of people don't have long ways to travel like we would be traveling if we when we get elected. So that's what I'm thinking about. A lot of time away from the family, time away from home. You have to consider the safekeeping of some of your property at home, and even paying for another apartment. Fortunately, we have children and grandchildren in certain areas that we can stay at, and relatives throughout Arizona. And that's how a lot of the legislators that are not independently wealthy, they survive and they serve their people. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela. And finally, May, will give you the opportunity to answer how you would vote. And actually, briefly, May, 1 second, actually. Angela, I wasn't quite sure whether your answer was that you would vote for SCR 1020 or not. I just want to clarify, were you a yes or a no?
I would say give them a raise. I would say yes.
Okay, thank you. And then May, go ahead and let us know how you would vote on SCR 1020.
I agree with Jamesita and Angela. We have such a vast area in the LD6, but we are not leaders because we want to get wealthy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what wealth is. In my own way, in the traditional way, I am a wealthy person because I help people and people help me. They talk to me and tell me about the issues that are facing them. So I am in that way, I'm wealthy. So this is what the difference between people that are there to gain and people like me. I grew up with no money, no shoes, no good clothing. I had my mother sewed my clothes. So this is where I come from. I'm not there. I'm not going to be there to get wealthy or anything. So this is where I stand on it. And if they rewrite the bill, I sure I would go for it, whatever that's put in there. But the way it's written, I will not. I would vote against it. I would vote no. So this is where I stand on that bill.
And can I ask, as a follow-up, the same question I asked Jamasita, is there, when you mentioned you would want it rewritten, how would you want it rewritten to gain your approval?
That I have to really look into it, because there are overlaps in these bills that I don't know. There's things that are being pushed in to uh, to literally really good bills that are overlapped with some fine prints. So I have to really look at this bill, but at the way that I have understood the bill, I would not vote for it.
And Jamasita, you'd like to add something?
Yes, we did discuss this earlier, and this is the reason why I would vote no, and is because this creates a commission to on the salaries for elected state officers. I really don't think there's a need for a commission to do that, but I'm not in office. I'm just now starting to read the bill. So I know I would have listened to where it went to in committee and listened to those that did testify. So from what I'm reading, and it's my understanding that they would be creating a commission, and that's where I disagree, because that just adds a whole nother layer of bureaucracy in there in raising the salaries of legislators.
So actually, the commission has existed since 1970. That aspect would not change whether or not the bill is passed. But let's move on to
Okay.
our next round. So, in the interest of time, due to time constraints, we're going to skip tonight's rapid fire round. And in light of that, we'll move on to our final um, our final round of the night, which is our closing statements. So each candidate gets 90 seconds, just like the opening statements, to give your final pitch to voters. And we'll start in the reverse order of the opening statements, meaning we'll go directly back to you, Jamasita. So go ahead and let voters know why they should vote for you.
Thank you, TJ. I think one of the things that that I, as a state representative and former senator, um, bring to the office is my knowledge, my experience, my leadership, and then also the vast and broad expanse of my journey as a Indigenous woman leader here in the state of Arizona. I do have an understanding at the federal, state, and tribal level of how the government is was created, the constitutions, the jurisdictions, the importance of tribal sovereignty, and then also how things such as tribal gaming impacts all of us, and then also how funding is earmarked and goes through the process of being funded, and then collaborating with state, city, tribal governments. And that's what I bring. And then also just knowing that the Constitution of the United States is an indigenous idea that came from the Iroquois Confederacy, with a three-prong approach in government. One is the executive, who executes the running of the household in this, how I like to think. And then the legislature, who are like the moms that set the rules. And then the judicial branch, who oversee and have the say of what is constitutional. And being able to stand up for the populations and protect civil rights. That I feel like that is something that is under threat. And the whole reason why I ran in the first place in 2012 was because I had a 10-year-old daughter one day who was sleeping next to me, and I found her crying, and I said, "Baby, why are you crying?" And she says, "Mom, I'm worried about the polar bear at the North Pole. Their ice is melting." And we spent 2 years going to the legislature so she could speak on behalf of the polar bears regarding climate change. And they didn't hear her. And so I thought, I can do the job of these people. I could do it. I'm a concerned mom. And if we can't depend on our moms, who can we depend on? And so I'm wear my heart on my sleeve, and I intend to work hard and do the job for all people across the board in rural and northern Arizona and Arizona. And so I know as an Indigenous woman, people think that maybe my qualifications, and for that matter, Angela and May's qualifications are only targeted at Indigenous people, but our vast knowledge, being small business owners, artisans, and teachers, qualifies us to be people that can represent truthfully and honestly and with great respect and humility the people of Arizona and District 6. Thank you, TJ.
Thank you so much, Jamasita. Next, we'll go with May. Go ahead and give us your closing statement.
Thank you again. For me, I work with a lot of people in my lifetime. The young people I work with at the schools. With my husband was a teacher, and I just they come from real rural areas, and where some of them don't have the vehicle to travel to their bus routes. And this is something that is really concerning to me. And also that I work with the elderlies on the Navajo Nation, and they just like from birth to old age, you want to live a good life where everybody in this country wants the same thing as we do, Indigenous people, and in LD6, everybody is like that. They want to live a good life. They can have affordable food, healthcare, school, and housing and infrastructure. So this is what I want to work with for all people, not just in LD6. We can support each other and learn to work with each other across the board, across the state, across the United States. I have friends in almost in every state, because I help my husband as a teacher. He retired out of Northern Arizona University, and I travel with him, and now I have friends in almost every state. So they help me, they teach me, and this is where I learned a lot about what I didn't know about myself. Because when you live a life, that's the way you live. But when somebody asks you a question, you become aware of why do we do this? Why do we say this? And things like this. So this is where I come from. So I love working with people. I love working for my people. I love working for everybody in Arizona. So this is what I like to continue doing. So that's my statement. And yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, May. And then finally, we'll round it out with Angela. Go ahead and take it away, Angela.
DJ, I bring a lot of experience healthcare wise and disease investigation wise on the Navajo and with the state of with the state of Utah and New Mexico. I had my boots on the ground with the hantavirus investigation and also the hantavirus and what's the other one? I'm sorry. Those types of disease investigation I have experience with. So I bring a lot of awareness, a lot of awareness of what the people utilize in our district and across Arizona, as far as making life more affordable and as far as making life a lot easier for and working for on behalf of the Arizonians, not just only in our district, but there's a lot of similarities on the way people live in Arizona. So I bring that experience to this job and to my running for office and I would advocate a lot for healthcare affordability, and I would like to say the resources that are here in Arizona, like coal and water and also copper, anything that's underneath the ground, above the ground, air, all that I would advocate for. And that would be my main reason for running. And I would like people to know that they can come to me and come to the Capitol and talk with what they need, because you're our bosses. The people at the ground level are our bosses. What they want, we have to advocate for the things that they need, and to make life better and make improvements, whether it's roads, healthcare, SNAP, all the issues in Arizona that the majority voiced their opinion about. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Angela. And thank you to all of you. That concludes tonight's Democratic primary debate for Legislative District 6. Thank you to all of our candidates for being here, and to all of the voters for watching and tuning in to inform yourselves ahead of the July 21st primary elections. And for official voter information, please visit azcleanelections.gov. Have a great night, everybody, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
TJ.